JTech Studios in Atlanta, Georgia. It's America's favorite game show podcast. Tell them what they've won. And now, here are your hosts, Tom Bastek and Mike Jacobs.
Hello and welcome in. It's America's favorite game show podcast. Tell them what they've won. We are the game show guys. I'm Tom Bastek.
And I am Mike Jacobs. Tom, it's great to see you again. We maybe got a bit of a stumble there on our season 3.
It's been a little time, and I think we owe our faithful listeners. First of all, I just want to say this. There was a few folks that reached out, more than a few folks that reached out to ponder and ask questions as to what was going on and why we hadn't been back in 3 weeks. And I'd like to apologize officially to all those folks because we could have put a post out there. And it wasn't until you put one up, last week, a couple of days ago?
Yeah, something like that.
That we finally got the word out that we are both still alive. We have not been killed by any, alligators or anything crazy like that.
No. Though, I mean, I guess I saw an alligator not too long ago, so there was slight danger. I mean, there was no real danger, but I'm saying, like, of all the things you could have said that could have killed me, that's actually kind of close to accurate, maybe?
Okay, all right. Well, I'm glad I almost hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah.
Suffice it to say, it's great that we've all become vaccinated, and both Mike and I had opportunities to see our families for the first time in over a year, and so we took both of those opportunities to go and do that.
Indeed, and I actually went out to a real live restaurant for the first time in over a year.
Wow.
Last night, so that was it was weird how not weird it felt. Like I was expecting it to be all like, oh, it's weird, I'm out in pub, but it just kind of felt like normal again.
It felt like normal again. It's going to be like the snap in the Marvel Cinematic Universe where 5 years goes by and some people are like, nothing happened. And it's like, we're going to be like just back out there doing things. And it's like that 1 year just didn't exist.
Well, but I hope that we remember that year did exist and perhaps make some changes for the better in the long run.
Well, I definitely am liking the changes that we've made here at the show where we actually occasionally will have the opportunity to do it live together. And with that, we have a great announcement about doing it live with you, the listener, as well.
Which, I mean, honestly, I got to say, this is like a watershed moment for the podcast because I think this is why we started doing it, right? So that we could do a live show.
I think the idea is that eventually we'd love to be able to do a show in front of an audience of 300 people. You know what I'm saying?
Well, okay, we're not quite there yet, but I'm just saying.
We are nowhere close to that.
A live show.
That would be great. To be honest, I'll do it in front of one person, and I don't care if that person even stays for the whole thing.
I mean, I'll do it in front of one person, and I don't care if that one person is you.
I appreciate that. Needless to say, the date has been set. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike and I, and hopefully Christian, are going to be coming down and performing our show live. We're going to be taping it. Obviously, we won't be streaming it at the Southern Fried Gaming Expo in Atlanta, Georgia, being held August 20th through 22nd this year, 2021, at the Marriott Renaissance Waverly, that is north of the city. And we couldn't be more excited to be a part of such a fantastic, wonderful weekend of games and things. Now, Mike, you've never been there before.
Well, so I was going to say I'm going to set you up to give me your little pitch line for this, but I want to do it in a very organic way because, no, I've never been, and I've heard you talk about this a whole bunch, but I honestly don't know much about it. From the term Game Room Expo, I have to imagine there's arcade games, pinball, that sort of thing?
So they were originally the Southern Fried Game Room Expo, and now they've expanded to include even more. And so let me give you just their byline, and that'll show you what it was. Originally up front, it was pinball games and a few arcade games, and it was about being in a game room. It was a live arcade. People would bring in their games, and it was great. And they'd have speakers, and they'd have panels, and they'd have some performances and stuff. And then it has just grown into where they're now calling it the Southern Fried Gaming Expo. And what it features is more than 250 arcade and pinball games, dozens of new and retro console systems. So you can play all the latest like Xboxes and stuff, but you can also go back and play like Odyssey.
Nice.
It's pretty darn cool. Plus, they have a massive tabletop library where, like, even if you don't have a tabletop game and you just want to borrow one, they've got a library of like 1,000 games. You could just go rent one, like almost as many as you own, Mike.
Yeah, I was gonna say, now you're talking my language. I'm a huge tabletop
Well,
fan.
they've got card games or RPGs. I mean, the list goes on and on. Plus, there's a whole bunch of different events now that are. Not only do they have all these amazing speakers that come out, they've got wrestling, they've got music, they've got tournaments, they've got a huge vendor expo area where you can buy all kinds of stuff. Like I got a etched pint glass with the Donkey Kong game board on it the last time I was there.
Oh, nice.
Totally awesome. Great panel sessions, guest speakers, so much more. Look them up online at GameATL.com. It's the Southern Fried Gaming Expo. But we're going to be there. We're going to be there live. And let me tell you, Mike, this is where it gets even better. So you and I are going to go down, and hopefully Christian will be able to join us. We're going to do the show live from somewhere in the event. So you guys will be able to see us as we're actually broadcasting live that week. We don't know what the game show is that we're going to do. Hell, we may give you a choice of 3 or 4 and let you guys vote on it.
Ooh, that's a good idea. We just had like an hour-and-a-half meeting and we didn't even bring that up, but I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
But it could be a potential. But the other thing that we're going to do while we're there is we are going to host a live game show, and it's probably going to be based on historic retro gaming, and whether it be tabletop and or pinball / video game. But it is going to be a lot of fun, and we are also going to get people registered at our booth area, our little table area, to be contestants on the show. So we will draw from a list of folks that we get. Also, Mike, are you ready for this?
I'm ready. Hit me.
We're going to do our first online giveaway where we are going to give away a full weekend pass to the event, which is a $70 value, by the way. By the way, it's not an expensive place to come. Like they've got a hotel and the rooms are like less than $100 a night. And it's a Renaissance, which it's a Marriott property that's on the high end there. So that's great. Although I don't know how many are left. So again, get to the GameATL.com website if you want to come down and stay. But we're not providing a place to stay, but we will give you a full weekend pass, which is a $70 value, and you're a guaranteed contestant on the game show.
Yes. And we also do have to clarify, we're not providing travel either.
Correct.
We don't have any money, really.
No.
So, yeah.
Give us some sponsors, and then we'll start paying for all this stuff.
But yeah, like you said, guaranteed spot to be on the show. You will be one of the contestants on our game show. So more details coming forthwith on entries and getting in and all that kind of stuff, but stay tuned for more of that. And yeah, I'm very, very excited to be doing a live show and doing a game show in person again.
This is it's very kismet because I've been working with these guys for a number of years, and the fact that we have this opportunity to work together again in a much more enhanced way, especially coming off of COVID and being there for a year of doing nothing. This is super exciting for us.
Well, and I got to be perfectly honest with you. With all the gaming and pinballing and everything else going on, it's entirely possible I'll just miss whatever recording schedule we have. So
Great.
Let's be prepared for that.
All right, so Tom will be doing the show by himself. Anyway, once again, the website is GameATL.com. We'll have it up on our website as well as we'll put it out on social too. So if you want to come out and see us, you'll have an opportunity to come do so. And please come introduce yourself to us. We'd love to meet you, and we'd love you. You can come make fun of us. We have zero problem with that.
Oh, no, I mean, that's what I would expect, really. Like, that's why we're not streaming it, right? Like,
yeah, exactly, because they'll be like, why is these two old guys over here trying to talk about game shows and they don't know what they're talking about?
You're not funny. Get off the stage.
Yeah, the Gong Show is we already did that one. We will not be featuring that live in person. All right, speaking of live and in person, it's time now to do a little news and possibly even stump our or chump. And we have been the chump for far too long.
Yes, well, let's see if we can stumpify Christian.
Light up your cigarette, crack open a beer, put the kiddos to bed. From chaos around the world to carnage in your burial front yard, it's time for the news.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Mike. This is the news brought to you by BuzzerBlog.com. ABC planning on continuing to provide year-round game show content for all us fans out there. The network revealed its fall 2021 schedule. Really good news. Celebrity Wheel of Fortune and Supermarket Sweep both getting a second season. I was amazed by both shows in season one, especially Celebrity Wheel of Fortune. Incredibly fun to watch and such a shakeup from what Wheel of Fortune usually is. To get these really personable celebrities up there, and they're clearly just playing the game for laughs and having fun. Really excited to see that for a second season.
And throwing Sajak totally off his game, I loved it.
Absolutely shook him up.
I've always been a fan of the celebrity game show editions or whatever, and like you say, it's even if it's not a celebrity I care about, it's just fun to see them in a more casual mode. Like, even if they're there to promote themselves, they always end up just having fun with the show and being a little more down to earth.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because back in the day, when a game show wasn't doing well in the ratings, the solution, quote, in quotes, solution, was always to add celebrities. And that was always a way, back in like the 70s, 80s, even into the 90s, that was a way you can tell a game show was getting ready to go off the air. They started adding celebrities. They'd say, this week we're playing with some of your favorite stars, raising, and they go, okay, well, that's the end of that show.
Well, I mean, that was true for most television in general, I feel, right? Like,
Yeah, that's when you jump the shark, right?
yeah,
Mike?
exactly.
Very true.
All right, Christian, what else do you have for us?
Well, NBC has recently announced that it's rebooting the iconic word game Password. Now, they re-upped their contract with Jimmy Fallon as host of The Tonight Show for another few years. Part of that deal is that Jimmy Fallon himself is developing a new version of Password for NBC. And people who watch The Tonight Show, I'm not one of them, not for any particular reason, but people who watch The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon might know that he occasionally plays Password with members of the studio audience as a bit on his show. They'll get the celebrities that are on for that day, and they play it true to the original. They get like they have a mock-up of the original set, and they use the classic rules. So it remains to be seen whether this new version is going to follow that. I think that in the context of a lot of the reboots we're seeing, it may. We have a good chance of seeing that, and no information on. Oh, excuse me. No information on contestants or anything like that just yet. We also don't know if Jimmy Fallon himself is hosting it, or if we're going to get some other celebrity, which, if it could be anybody at this point. So I'm super excited to see Password back. And as soon as they announce auditions, I am clearing my schedule and I am running to wherever those auditions are, because I kick ass at Password.
Wow.
I think I would be pretty good at it too. That sounds awesome. I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, and to tell you the truth, I do watch Fallon occasionally, and it's bits like that I do watch. Like that'll come up and that'll be on like a a YouTube reel, and I'll be like, oh, I'll watch that one. That as it pops in, and I do like it. I like the way he does it. I have a lot of fun with it. I feel like that's going to be a successful venture. So we'll see.
The thing about Password is that it's such a simple game, and I'm wondering how that would fit into NBC primetime. I mean, this is the same network that does a show like The Wall. Like, where is old school Password going to fit in? So it's either going to be a completely out of left field, true to the original reboot, or we're going to get some weird monstrosity with talking robots and, all kinds of crazy 21st century stuff.
Yeah, big rigged Pepsi slot machines.
We can only hope. Pepsi presents Password.
Oh, wow.
Oh no.
All right. How about anything? We got one more for us, Christian? What do you think?
Well, a classic kids game show is casting for a reboot, Legends of the Hidden Temple, which we announced a couple weeks ago. They were going through the casting process for that, looking for contestants, looking for contestants age 21 and older. So this is clearly a reboot for the generation that grew up watching the original on Nickelodeon. So we do have an announcement that the CW announced that they have picked up Legends of the Hidden Temple. Really interesting summer for game shows on the CW. Between this, they have a couple of other oh, Jesus Christ. They have a couple of other British panel shows that they're bringing back, like Would I Lie to You? it's interesting. It's an interesting strategy, especially, and I've said this a couple times, especially coming from a network where this type of programming has failed miserably. This is the home of one episode Taskmaster.
Yeah. So it's interesting. You brought up Would I Lie to You. Wasn't that a takeoff on Truth or Consequences originally?
No, What I Lie to You is a panel game where it's two teams of 3 celebrities. Each of them has a story, and they have to convince the other team that their story is true. So they have to kind of face a line of questioning and that kind of thing.
Okay. Cool. Interesting. I mean, CW doesn't strike me like when they say we're doing a new game show. That doesn't like give me a lot of hope.
No, well, it's not only does it not give me a lot of hope, but it's like, I don't know, Tom, I'm sure at your days in the theater you've run across those people that are always like, I'm going to do this project, and then you never hear about it again.
Oh, God.
I feel like that's what the CW is.
I've also got those people that I met in theater like, I'm going to do a project, and you're like, oh, please don't, and they do.
Oh, well, okay, yeah, so I guess the CW is a little bit of dipping their feet in both of those pools.
Oh, God. All right. Yeah. Whew.
Yeah, the CW strategy for the past year seems to be pick up whatever inexpensive original programming they can get. And again, probably because of the pandemic, because there's been a lack of ability to do scripted TV. And, you know, just as a quick reminder, this is one of almost 24 game shows we're going to see this summer. And I mentioned it previously, but we have about 16 game shows premiering in the next 2 months alone. So already in the month of May, we've had Common Knowledge on Game Show Network, Mental Samurai on Fox, we've had Press Your Luck, $100,000 Pyramid on ABC, The Cube on TNT aired a preview episode, it's incredible, by the way.
Oh, I gotta see it.
Oh yeah, Small Fortune on NBC premiered last weekend, and then coming up, The Bachelorette, more of The Cube as a regular series, the celebrity dating game, Card Sharks, Holy Moly, The Chase. To tell the truth, we are living in a golden age of game shows right now. It is a wonderful time to be alive and be a fan of this kind of stuff.
You know, it's so interesting, Christian, because the one question I really do have is, I know everything is cyclical and it will eventually peter out, and we'll be in this game show drought for a period of time. Do you think that with the end of COVID, you see that coming anytime soon in like the next year or so?
Well, I think that the popularity of all these reboots started way before COVID. We're going back to maybe 2016, 2017, when ABC just out of the gate started when ABC out of the gate just started programming all these classic series. I mean, we got a new Match Game, we got a new Press Your Luck, which, I mean, you know, who would have thought that in the year 2021 we'd have that on a reboot of relatively obscure 80s game show in prime time. So I think that once COVID ends, my prediction is that the popularity of these shows will continue. You know, game shows have always been popular with networks for a huge reason. That huge reason being money, being that they are inexpensive, comparatively inexpensive when you're looking at the cost of a game show versus the cost of a scripted series. So in that way, game shows never really left. Whether that popularity will continue, it remains to be seen. But I'm feeling good about it.
Yeah. Well, speaking of really, really cheap shows, we have one this week, and we'll talk about it in a second. But first, let's talk about this week in game show history.
Well, this week in game show history, we are going back, way back to June 7th. 1955, and the premiere of what would become an iconic game show, quiz show, for various reasons. This is the premiere of the $64,000 question. Now, the premiere of this show heralded the beginning of the era of big money quiz shows. So in the early to mid 50s, you had this sudden onslaught of game shows where the game almost came second to the prize. You had shows that were giving away tens of thousands of dollars, life-changing money. And the $64,000 question was one of the first shows, if not the first show, to give away that kind of money. Was created by a guy named Lewis Cowan, who the popularity of the $64,000 question got so insane. It just reached insane levels. So insane that Lewis Cowan went from the creator of the $64,000 question to the president of CBS television in the time that this show was on the air. Absolutely mind-boggling ratings. It was the #1 rated show on TV for a large portion of the time that it was on the air. And the format might sound familiar to anybody who knows Millionaire. You know, you get a stack of questions. The first one is worth $1, and the value goes up and up and up. Eventually, when the questions get valuable enough, you're in an isolation booth, and you're competing in a specialist subject. So you go on the show, you have an idea of what category you are best at, and they write a stack of questions that is catered to that particular topic in increasing difficulty. Now, that all works in theory. The problem, one of the many problems, was that the show was completely rigged. Sponsors were in charge of television shows back then, Revlon being the sponsor of the $64,000 question, and the sponsors wanted exciting games with beautiful people. So there were a lot of liberties taken to ensure that the people who looked best on TV and who performed best on TV got the answers to their questions. Dr. Joyce Brothers was a contestant on the $64,000 question. Her category was boxing. She was a boxing expert. And what she did was she read this little pocket encyclopedia on the history of boxing. Turned out that the question writers for the show used the same book, so they thought they were pitching her these really hardball questions. She got them all right, won the grand prize, and that's how she first became famous as a champion on the $64,000 question.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really insane. The show made a lot of rich people. There was a spin-off called the $64,000 Challenge where contestants competed against people who won a lot of money on the show. The very first ever successful game show spin-off, by the way. And then, you know, as the movie quiz show tells, the whistle was blown on the cover up behind $64,000 question. A lot of the other big money game shows, they all went away. People testified before the grand jury. Turned out to be this massive deception. But the show still holds a place in game show history. Fun fact. In the year 2000, CBS almost brought it back. They did shoot a pilot episode of a new $64,000 question hosted by Greg Gumbel, and apparently it was so boring they didn't even go forward with it. But
Well, in all fairness, Greg Gumbel's pretty boring.
I was going to say, what a choice.
I hope he doesn't listen to the show. Damn.
he doesn't anymore.
Oh, there it is. All right. Well, Christian, thank you. Once again, a thrilling This Week in Game Show History. Wonderful. All right, Mike, it's time. Let's see if we can stump or chump. And I don't know if I'm liking our chances or not this week. Every week I want to say I am, and every week we just get poo-pooed.
Well, I feel like our chances are high simply because the Love Connection is not much of a game show. So maybe
This is very true.
Maybe it's slipped by Christian's radar. But Christian, so on the Love Connection, you know, as you're aware, they chose these sort of Lonely Hearts videos for the contestants to go on dates with. And as you can imagine with a show like this, they would have just tons and tons and tons of these videos, submissions and interviews and all that kind of stuff. And so in order to narrow these people down and decide who actually made it to air, they would judge them on what they referred to as a paleo score. That is P-A-L-I-O. And I spell it because it is indeed an acronym. And so I want you to tell me the 5 things that paleo stands for in order to give potential contestants scores to see if they make it on the show. So in other words, what does paleo stand for in the context of Love Connection?
Okay. Well, you're right in that Love Connection it's a game show to a certain degree, but I wouldn't necessarily.
It's a
count
stretch.
it as a
I
game
know.
show.
It's a stretch.
It's a relationship show, and the most famous version of it was hosted by a really popular game show guy. My official guess is I have no idea.
Interesting.
I've never even heard of that. I've never even heard of that as an acronym. I've never even heard of it in relation to that show. So I'm excited to learn.
So if let's see if I can guide you there. If you were a producer for that show and trying to decide what kind of people you want to get on this show, what sorts of metrics would you choose?
And we're going
Yeah, so just think about what those letters are and what they would stand for, and things that you would be looking for in a contestant for a Love Connection show.
Okay, so we're going by the letters. So we'll start
Correct.
with P.
P. Yeah.
What's a good quality of a date that begins with P? I would say personality.
There
Perfect.
you go.
You're 1 for
Okay.
5. Keep going.
Okay. A. Attractiveness.
I'll give it to you. It's
Yeah.
appearance.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Good
Okay,
job.
Cool. L. Likability.
Ooh.
Likability, liar. If they're a liar, if they're a good liar. Layability.
That would be in today's day and age. It would be
Right,
layability. It would
yeah,
definitely
for
be
sure.
one of them. Yeah, no.
I don't know. I want to know what this means, and I want to know where you learned this. I'm fascinated.
Lifestyle is the L.
Huh. I wonder what kind of lifestyle. Oh, maybe like, somebody who's
Like, do you live with your mom?
Yeah,
or,
are you a
know,
partier? That kind of thing.
right?
You wear red hats with MAGA on it.
Oh, all right. And moving on to I.
I might say intelligence.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
And finally, at O, the one thing I would say we have not brought up yet.
I would say organization, organizational
it's-
skills.
you're
Are there all their
close,
coupons and envelopes? I don't know.
You're close. This is something that really has nothing to do with a person's look necessarily or their personality, but starts with an O.
Not to do with their looks or their personality, but it starts
Yeah.
with an O.
Yeah, I mean, it really would. For most people nowadays, I don't think that this would be a deciding factor on whether or not you would date someone.
No, it's really just a yes or no question, honestly. Do you have one or not?
Not, yes. Nowadays.
Do you have an orangutan? Do you have an
You're going the wrong sound with the O. Maybe
Yeah.
it's
An
more of a ah.
Do you have an occupation?
There it is.
There it is.
Guys, I think I smell a game show in all this.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, the good news is that is something that actually I guess Chuck Woolery had come out and talked about when they were doing a behind the scenes years ago about this show.
Absolutely no clue. Good
Yeah.
one.
Well, and the truth is again, it's a win, but it's a semi-win because it's such. And Mike and I will discuss this way more in detail over the course of the episode. It's a real stretch to call this a game show.
Yeah.
Oh, so give me another question.
Next week, my friend. Next week.
Well, and you know what? I'm counting it because it's not the first one. I'm okay with taking a cheap win for not the first win.
No, I will gladly give you this one because I had absolutely no idea that even existed.
Well, do you have any things that you want to share about Love Connection? Did you like it? Did you watch it? Have you seen it?
It's funny, when we started lockdown back in 2020, Love Connection was one of the shows that my wife and I just started binging because a lot of it is available on YouTube.
Right.
Really fun show. Maybe. And see, I wasn't old enough to appreciate it when it was originally on back in like late 80s, early 90s. But looking back, there was a definite charm and entertainment value to the show. Chuck Woolery, I thought, was an awesome host. Regardless of what you could say about his political leanings today, I thought he just did a fantastic job on that show.
Right.
It's funny. Love Connection has a connection to a game show from the 60s called Camouflage. Now, Camouflage was about, like the central idea of Camouflage was there was a big hidden picture puzzle. And every time you got a question right, a layer of the picture would go away and you have to find a hidden object. Now, the artist for that show was a guy named Eric Lieber. And Eric Lieber was a graphic arts student. That was his first job in TV back in the early 60s. 20 years later, he would go on to create Love Connection.
Wow.
Interesting.
It's funny how things are connected in ways you don't even realize when it comes
Right.
Yeah.
to, when it comes to game shows, But I think as an adult now, I see it as a really fun show. I could see the argument for it not being a game show, but I could also see the argument for it being a game show. There's the presentation of it. It just screams game show to me.
I agree. It's very much in a game show package, but the contents are really just a sort of like gossip talk show. Not even really gossip because I don't know. Yeah, we'll talk more about it later in the episode. But I'm not a huge fan. It just doesn't. There's no what game? What game is there? You know.
I mean, here's the thing: if you want to get 2 free dates, you're playing the game to try to get 2 free dates.
I guess that's true.
That's true. They also, if I remember correctly, had some contestants that were on there a bunch. Like, if you didn't get picked for a second date, you had the possibility of coming back. So I think they had a few regulars during its, I think like 11
Yeah, I couldn't
years.
find anything about specifically regulars. I didn't look too much into it, but there are definitely people who were on there multiple times because they didn't get picked or something like that. Yeah, or came back with a bad date and that.
Or they looked like me. All right. Well, thank you, Christian. How about a plug for BuzzerBlog?
Of course, BuzzerBlog.com, the #1 game show website in the world. Whether you're looking for information on new series, returning series, retro reviews, anything relating to the worlds of game shows and unscripted entertainment, BuzzerBlog.com is the place to go.
Thank you so much, sir. And we will see you again in about a week. Hopefully this time, not 3 weeks off.
I hope not. It's been too long. I missed you guys. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, buddy. All right. Once again, if you've got a question that you'd like to be posed to pose to Christian through us via Stump or Chump, just give us drop us a line via social or at the website tellthemwhatthey've.com. Tellthemwhatthey've.com. Say it a little slower there, and we'll get you in.
Yes.
Mike, this week we've got Love Connection. So coming up next, the gameplay.
Well, boy, I mean, I've said this for a couple shows, but I mean, just call this a game show is a stretch.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about that, and obviously I think that plays into our ratings at the very end too. But we'll talk about it next when we hit the gameplay up as well.
Yes, let's get a little break under our belt.
All right, you've been listening to America's favorite game show podcast. Tell them what they've won.
Welcome to Love Connection, where old-fashioned romance meets modern-day technology. Where you hear all the intimate details of a first date. And now, here is our host, Chuck Woolery. All right, thank you, Johnny Gilbert.
All right, there it is, the theme to Love Connection. You're listening to America's favorite game show podcast. Tell them what they've won. It is our show of the week, our featured show, if you will. Michael, a lot of people like this show. I am not the biggest fan. We'll talk more about that in the ratings. Your thoughts?
Well, I would say people liking this show is independent of the fact of it being a game show, which is to say, I don't think this is a game show.
Oh, yeah, you and I both talked about that with Christian, too, though. And it's like, it's because it's got a game show host and it has kind of a game showy type format-y feel, and that's why it gets lumped in with game shows.
Right, exactly. And a hot take that I had today a realization I had while doing my dishes today.
Okay.
Survivor is more of a game show than this.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
We got that on air. That is recorded
Yep.
for perpetuity.
Yes, indeed. Please make sure that does not get cut out of the episode because I will stand by that argument or statement or whatever it is.
That's because there's a lot more game. But speaking of game, it's time for the gameplay of our featured game, Love Connection. Go ahead.
Right. So, yeah, we've said before in the past how, like, gameplay is not a thing on some shows, or, like, specifically, like, the example I was going to use was Hollywood Squares, where gameplay takes a second, seat to the panel aspect of it.
Sure.
In this case, there really is, like, no
Zero gameplay.
and I mean that quite literally. Like, I don't even really understand what the game aspect is. So basically you get the, for lack of a better word, contestant who comes out, and they have gone on a date with one of 3 people. Basically, the contestant was shown, I guess they're only shown 3 selections, 3 videos of, like, Lonely Hearts style dating videos,
Okay.
Like interviews with guys who talk about, oh, I'm into long walks on the beach and
Okay.
Miami Vice because it's the
So
80s.
a typical like video online personal ad essentially.
Yes, exactly. So, I mean, I would think people, who are, more conscious in the 80s are probably familiar with this concept, maybe more than our younger audience. Nowadays it's all online dating or whatever. But
Right, but video dating was a big thing for a while.
yes, it absolutely was. So, anyways, they're shown a selection of them. They choose which one they want to go on the date with. The audience is also shown clips from the 3 different suitor videos, and the audience is voting on who they think is going to be the best connection for that contestant.
All right, so let me get this straight. Basically, what happens is this guy goes on a date. He sees 3 videos. He chooses a date. He goes on a date with a person. Then he comes on and tells Chuck all about the date. Meanwhile, the audience has seen the 3 videos and they vote for who they think he chose or he had the love connection with. He talks about the date. They reveal the audience's choice, and if they're correct, then he gets to meet them. I'm confused.
Okay.
Explain it to me a little more because the 2 episodes I watched, the audience chose the person who he had dated,
Right.
and that person came out on stage and they were happy and they went on a second date.
Right. Okay. So yes, if they had a good date, they will bring them out on stage together. Like I said, that they start how one is backstage and they're separated. So yes, if they agree that they had a good date, they are reunited on stage. The audience voting thing, I guess this is the gameplay part of it because it determines on whether you quote win or lose. But really, so if the audience voted for the same person that the contestant chose and had a good date with, then they get a second date with that person.
Now, what if the audience chooses one of the other 2 suitors?
They can choose whether they want to go with one of the other 2 suitors or not, or whichever one won. So basically, all that happens is the audience votes for who the person gets a date with, and they can either say yes or no. It's it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and again, I see the appeal to the people who love the dating shows and whatnot, but I don't know. This to me is ranking up. They're singled out as smelly garbage, and this is right behind it.
Well, to me, I don't even want to say it's smelly garbage because it's it's a talk show. I can see the appeal of it as a gossip and
And Chuck Woolery is funny and friendly and awesome.
I have that in the notes for the history part. He's the only redeeming quality of this show. But it's he's charming, and I get the concept of they have not discussed it beforehand, so one person might think it went really well and one person doesn't. You get that sort of human drama stuff. But to try and disguise it as a game show is just absurd. And that they win a second date, that's it.
And it's only $75.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, that's the other thing is, I think a lot of what led this show to have the longevity that it did is the lack of budget.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like the reason why this show was popular, and I mean, they had over 22,000 couples go on dates. 22,000.
Mm-hmm.
To me, the reason for that is you're getting on television. That's the whole reason to do this show.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's it. It's the 15 minutes of fame.
Yeah.
It's not a concept that is for me, and I don't know what else I can say about it because it's such like it's the cotton candy of TV. You put it in your mouth and you get a sweet flavor for 2 seconds and then it's gone.
And then it disappears. Yeah, and it disappears. But you know what's funny is I still buy cotton candy every time I go to
as I say that, I love cotton candy, so maybe I do get it.
I'm not gonna poo-poo it too badly because for what it is, it's just what it is what it isn't is a game show.
Right. It's a talk show, and I think that's kind of my ultimate beef is that
how does it get lumped in with game shows?
Chuck Woolery, I think, is really the only reason. So.
That's probably true. All right. Well, there is a history to this, believe it or not, and we should probably talk about that next.
Yeah, let's take a quick break.
All right, when we come back, we'll do history, and of course, we can't wait to hear Mike's incredible ranking for Love Connection.
Oh, boy.
You've been listening to America's favorite game show podcast. Tell them what they've won. Welcome back. You're listening to America's favorite game show podcast, Tell Them What They've Won. It is segment 3 of episode number 42. Our featured game this week is Love Connection. Mike?
Yes, Tom.
Our featured talk show this week is Love Connection.
It is. Next week, The View.
Yeah, hey, you know, we could go on to talk shows after game shows are done.
I mean, I don't know that I'd be into it necessarily, but yeah, anyways. Okay, all right. So we have the show debuting September 19th, 1983, and it is originally hosted by Chuck Woolery. He holds that role for the entirety of the 11-season run. Yes, 11 seasons of this show.
Dude, this was a popular show.
Well,
man.
okay, so I do want to come back to this because I mentioned it a little bit last segment where that I think the budget has a lot to do with that because, like you said, it's $75 for the date. Chuck Woolery is the only host. The music that we were talking about earlier was the same theme song throughout the entire run. They never changed it. They never changed the set. They changed the lighting of the set. But they just kept the same show running the entire time. And that's what I don't know that necessarily it was so popular. I think it was just popular enough to warrant a very, very low production cost.
Yeah, so the budget was so cheap. They're like, well, we're not going to cut this. This fills and Chuck Woolery's personal enough. It might as well. It's a no-brainer. Keep it on the air.
Yeah, absolutely. And I understand why Chuck held the role for the entire time. I by no means want it to come across that I'm saying that Chuck Woolery got that role for 11 years only because of budget. He was a great host. Like I said earlier, the only redeeming quality of the show.
Correct.
So I do want to clarify that. Also, by odd coincidence, Love Connection premiered on the same day as the syndicated edition of Wheel of Fortune, which is a show previously hosted by Chuck Woolery.
There it is.
Yeah, a game show hosted by.
Yes, a true game show.
A true game show. During this show, and I guess Scrabble both concurrently because he was hosting both at the same time. But this is where Woolery started his 2 and 2 catchphrase. I totally misunderstood what this catchphrase even was.
What does it mean?
Okay, so what it means is we'll be back in 2 and 2, meaning 2 minutes and 2 seconds, which is apparently the length of a commercial break, including the fade in and fade out of the show. So in other words, the show will be back in 2 minutes and 2 seconds.
Oh, I see. Okay.
What I always thought it was, and have used in a professional stage context, was that round 2 will be coming up in 2 minutes. So it was 2 in 2. You're getting round 2 in 2 minutes.
I see.
Now, I guess technically I wasn't misusing it. I was simply eliminating the possibility of using it going into round 3, having it also apply there. So not terribly off.
Shame on you, bad Michael.
Well, it's just that was an interesting thing because that was just a thing that had stuck in my head. And every time someone brings up Chuck Woolery, I think of him doing 2 and 2, and he flips his hand around, right? He shows like the two fingers with the front of the hand and then the back of the hand.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had just totally misunderstood what that was my entire life until a couple days ago.
I have to say, honestly, that's probably the most enjoyable part of this entire show that we've talked about so far.
Definitely the most informative.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Go ahead, continue, please.
One thing that did change a lot throughout the show was the announcers. But boy, I tell you, this lineup is a real like murderer's row of announcers.
Nice. Okay, go ahead.
In chronological order, we have Rod Roddy, then Gene
Nice.
Wood, then Rich
Wow.
Jeffries, then Johnny Gilbert, and
Wow.
finally John Cervenka, who actually I'm not familiar with, but
Yeah,
I
you
like
know
that.
John Cervenka. Trust me.
I do.
Yeah, you do.
Okay, I didn't.
I'd
look
have
him
to.
up,
I
but-
don't. Yeah, off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you the other shows, but you know him. Trust me.
Fair enough. And then, like I say, 11 seasons later, July 1st, 1994, it came to an end after what Wikipedia says is 2,120 shows. But apparently there was an ad in the trade papers at the time as a promotion that claimed this is a quote, there were 35,478 taped interviews, 2,145 episodes, 31 marriages, and 20 babies.
Wow.
Yeah. So my guess is maybe some episodes didn't make it to air or something like
Yeah,
that.
I also read somewhere there's like 22,000 couples went on dates. Something
Well,
like
I mean, that makes sense, right? Like if you...
yeah, but they're not doing 10 couples
no,
per
that's true.
show.
I was just about thinking that. I was like, yeah, no, that would
I
be
mean-
about 4,000.
Yeah, that doesn't.
Well, and so that's the thing is all the numbers on this are real loosey-goosey, and I think a lot of it is just like producer fluff, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
With the 31 marriages and 20 babies, like who knows really how much of that is actually true.
Right.
Apocryphal at best.
Sure.
There's no denying whether you fudge those numbers or not that the popularity of this show was significant. So I guess this refutes what I maybe said earlier that it was exclusively because of the budget. But for many years, well, no, I guess it doesn't. For many years, it was third behind Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy as the longest-lasting game show in syndication. So again, that doesn't necessarily say that it was
Great.
popular, just that it was hanging on, you know?
It also says that other people think it's a game show.
Well, exactly. It's listed as a game show. That, by the way, has since been surpassed. Steve Harvey's first season of Family Feud broke the record, and apparently the syndicated edition of Millionaire did as well, which blew my mind. I mean, we talked about it. We have an episode on it, but I never put it together that it was that long lasting. So
Oh, interesting.
good for
Okay.
them.
Yeah.
But yeah, didn't do much after that, sadly, or not so sadly, as the case may be. 1998, there was an attempt at a revival hosted by a gentleman named Pat Bullard. I looked him up. Not much going on there. He was a television writer, wrote on some, kind of second-rate sitcoms.
Sure.
No offense, Pat, if you're a listener.
Uh-oh.
No, I'm not a big fan of Reba. My wife loves it, though. And then 2007, Fox picked it up and made a version hosted by Andy Cohen, who is a man I'm sure people know.
Yeah, I like Andy Cohen a lot. I don't know if you know him. He's on what is it? It's like E or A&E or
Yeah,
what-
he's all over the place. And to be
he
honest
does
with
that.
you,
What happens next or what happens
Yes.
next
Yeah,
live or
watch-
whatever.
Watch What Happens, I believe is what it's
Yeah,
called.
yeah.
And
I like
he's,
him a lot.
he's one of those guys that pops up everywhere, and every time I see him, like, oh yeah, that guy.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't like necessarily follow his career or anything. But
Sure.
yeah, no, I think he's great. But yeah, that the 98 one only ran for one season. The 2017 one lasted for 2 seasons. That's twice as long, but still, not much.
Yeah.
Not much happening there. And personally, I'm okay with that. I say it's gone. I don't want to see a new version. I guess if they do make it a talk show, just get it away from the idea of making it a game show and just make it a gossipy talk show.
Wait a second, Mike. Hang on. I think what we need to do is if we see another show, we need to make it more of a game show.
Oh, okay.
Now,
Okay.
to me, here's the issue with this. They've already done it. the 90 the what, Marriage at First Sight, you've already ramped up this dating thing into like higher stakes. So how do we make it more gamey?
Well, I mean, I guess you could sort of keep the audience vote idea that they have, and maybe okay, here's what you do. Before they come out and talk about the date, they interview them about the date independently and have it like pre-taped. And then do it like where they're talking to the people on the stage, and then they're like, oh, and then this situation came up during the date, and maybe they chat about it a bit, and now they go to the audience and say, all right, so at this point, did XYZ happen, or did Bob do QRJ or whatever, present two different options to the audience, and they have to vote. And basically, I don't really, maybe it's like a game for the contestants at that point, because they're trying to lead the audience into thinking there was a love connection or not, or something along those lines. Keeping that idea of the audience participation, I'm not opposed to that. But something where it's a little more.
Maybe you. I mean, see, there's so many different dating shows at this point that have explored all these different options. I mean, for me, I wonder if you could, you have two people come on and they went on a date, and then they both come out and they talk about the date, and the audience just has to vote whether they're either true or false. Either they have the love connection or they are faking it.
Okay, well, so then you got to do it like a panel show.
Kind of, but you let the audience be the panel.
Yeah, but then, I mean, yeah, I guess you're just sort of watching two people chit chat. To me, that still loses it, and I don't know.
Well, I think if nothing else, it still really doesn't resonate with me as a game show, and it's fine. I mean, people want to consider it a game show. Obviously, we're doing it as a game show. We're featuring it as a game show. So,
well, and at the end of the day, it's fine. Like, I'm not gonna like write any letters or anything.
I'm upset.
There is a chance to win a prize, and there is a chance to not win that prize. So That's fine, I guess. But I think what this conversation about trying to make it a game show has shown is, in order to make it a game show, you have to change it so much that it's like, are you really even making Love Connection anymore? You're just making a new dating show.
Correct. Well, I guess it's time that we do a rating system at this point. Michael, what do you think?
Again, it's like, I don't want to be that hard on it simply because it's not a game show.
Right.
But it's also kind of poop soup outside of that. I feel like I'm being snobbish by saying that, but these sorts of like gossipy things, it's not for me. It's not my wheelhouse at all.
I'm not a big Singled Out fan. I didn't really like. Now, here's what I did like. I did like the Newlywed Game, and we will eventually feature the Newlywed Game as well, because that has a lot more game to it.
That's a game. Absolutely.
It is.
Absolutely.
It is. And so that's like the one relationship game that I'm not gonna like poo-poo as much. But
I agree.
The rest of these shows, I'm just like, they don't do an awful lot for me.
They don't.
That being said, I give the networks all the credit in the world for figuring out a way for $150 or $225 if you had three couples on the show, and Chuck Woolery's salary.
Right. That was it.
That's an amazing budget. You just kept the budget so low, dude. That's respectful as hell.
Yeah. No
Doesn't
doubt.
make it a great show, but it makes it a very great, profitable show.
Well, and we've brought up Singled Out a couple times, and I think, and I wish I should have gone back and re-listened to what I rated Singled Out. To me, this show is not the like society ruining garbage that Singled Out was.
I do understand what you're saying there, and it does have the redeeming qualities of our wonderful host Chuck Woolery. So,
indeed,
I think for me, I'm just going to put it at about a 2.
Yeah, I'm just going to go with a 1 and just kind of leave it there.
And I don't even know if I'm going to say 2 dates, I guess.
What
we're rating as. Because I can't think of anything else that we would choose. But yeah, 2 out of 5 dates is what I'm giving it. You're giving it 1 out of 5 dates.
1 out of 5 dates.
I think that's fair. And nothing against the show. For those of you who love it, you can write in and harass us for hating it, but it is what it is.
Well, and again, if you love it, you love a talk show. And
Sure.
I think it's time for you to accept that.
Just take it out of the game show category.
Yep.
All right. Well, I think that's it for this week, Michael. It's a rather quick one, but next week I'm excited. We've got some good stuff coming up in the next couple of weeks.
We do. We got some real interesting from the vault ones that I'm very excited for. So yes, thank you, Christian. Thank you, Buzzer Blog. Thank you, everyone listening. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Pat Bullard. That's all I got.
Tune in again next week. We'll take you on a nice little trip. We're going to bring you the latest and greatest in the world of game shows. A brand new featured show next week, and it will be a game show, I guarantee it.
And remember, you can always catch us online, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course, tell them what they've won.com.
Please subscribe, share, like, and drop a review if you like what you heard.
And if you didn't like it, I'm giving you a low paleo score.
Oh, you chumper. You stumper. See you next week, Mike.
Bye, Tom.
You've been listening to America's favorite game show podcast. Tell them what they've won. A JTech audio production. Copyright 2021. No part of this podcast may be reproduced by anyone without the express written consent of the creators. For more information or to contact us, please go to tellthemwhatthey'vewon.com. All right. What did you learn this week, Mike?
Well, I mean, honestly, what I learned was the 2 and 2 thing, but we already talked about that. So what I learned this week is that Pat Bullard wrote for the TV sitcom Reba.
Right.
Yep.
Well, in addition to learning that your wife loves Reba.
She does.
That's just hilarious to me. Not that there's anything wrong with it. I'm just saying it's hilarious.
She has a Reba tattoo.
Oh, my gosh. Does she really?
She does.
Oh, my gosh. That's amazing. Okay, so that's what I've really learned this week. I also realized I love hating on Love Connection style shows. It's just, I don't know why I enjoy it. And people are going to hate me for that.
It's just like beating a dead horse, if you ask me.
Copyright 2021, a JTech audio production.